We're going to keep Iron Dome fully supplied so it can continue standing sentinel over Israeli skies, saving Israeli lives. We've moved U.S. military assets to the region, including positioning the USS Ford Carrier Strike Group in the Eastern Mediterranean, with the USS Eisenhower on the way to defer further aggression against Israel and to prevent this conflict from spreading. The world will know that Israel is stronger than ever.
Jeremy, I thought this might be the most significant foreign trip by a U.S. president in any recent moment. What's your thought on the importance of President Biden's trip?
It's absolutely incredible that the commander-in-chief would travel all the way to a war zone to an ally to stand shoulder to shoulder, to go into the war cabinet, sit with Israeli leaders, provide guidance, provide counsel, but fundamentally to provide reassurance that the United States has Israel's back. And I think it was critically important for three audiences. First and foremost, for the Israeli people, who are obviously still in mourning and in shock, and having America back them has been uplifting to their spirits. Second audience I think was important was Iran and Hezbollah and those in the region who might use this crisis to try to strike a blow against the United States or Israel. And third, I think it was a very clear message to those Palestinians and leadership of the Arab world who do not like Hamas and who want Hamas destroyed. And I've spoken to Arab diplomats today, and they said the measure of success is whether or not we can collectively destroy Hamas. And it was a message to them saying, if you help join us in this fight, we can succeed. We can get humanitarian assistance into Gaza by working collectively. We can open the Rafah crossing. We can make sure that refugees are taken care of. We can do the right thing by the humanitarian tragedy that's unfolding in Gaza. And Arab leaders and people in the Palestinian communities, please join me. So I thought that was a phenomenally important message by the president as well. It was absolutely the finest hour by any president I have seen in a long, long time.
I want to come back to the conversation you started by ripping the Band-Aid off, something that's happening off air, but not in a lot of places on the air. I'm very grateful that you did that on this show. I want to ask you about something I tried to get at with Habib Gore yesterday, and that is the skepticism. And I want to ask you to sort of, if it's a pie, how much of the pie is skepticism about Bibi Netanyahu? How much of it is hardwired anti-Semitism? How much of it is American isolationism? And how much of it is something else we're not even talking about yet?
It's such a great question, Nicole, and it's so hard to answer. And I think we have to enter this conversation knowing that Bibi Netanyahu, and really almost any Israeli prime minister in the last, several, you got to go back to Yitzhak Rabin, almost everyone has been somewhat divisive, somewhat controversial, has sort of commanded about half of the popular support inside the body politic in Israel. And so, yes, there's going to be some skepticism of him and his leadership. But to his credit, he has formed a national unity government. He's brought Benny Gantz into that government. He's sat with his opposition. And so I think right now, the way the United States views this is that the government of Israel is united. And so therefore, when people want to blame Israel, it really can't be seen as just about Bibi or just about one political party you agree or disagree with. I think you're right, Nicole. There is tremendous skepticism on anything Israel does. It's always been that way. And I think in America, sometimes we just take for granted our security. After 9/11, the war wasn't being fought on our borders. It was being fought in Afghanistan. The war in Israel is being fought on their borders. In America, after 9/11, we didn't have a mass mobilization of every military-aged person, male and female. They have that in Israel at this hour. After 9/11, we didn't have hostages, hundreds of hostages taken by al-Qaeda. That's what they're dealing with in Israel. So, Israel's decision-making, I think, is undoubtedly, people are sort of deriding it and saying it's emotional. Of course it's emotional. But hopefully with guidance from the United States, with guidance from Secretary Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Secretary Austin, General Kurilla, the CENTCOM commander who was there this week, Israel will have good intelligence sharing. They'll have good discussions about CONOPS in Gaza. They'll have good counterterrorism practices. They'll have, as the president announced today, ammunition, Iron Dome interceptors. This is exactly what the alliance was built for.
Jeremy, listen with me. This is President Joe Biden at the back of the plane en route home from Israel.
At the House, do you have any view of Jim Jordan and his predicament?
Do I have any what?
Do you have a view of Jim Jordan's current predicament and unable to secure the speakership?
I ache for him. No. Zero. None.
Mr. President?
How about the hospital, sir? People all over the region are upset about the hospital and don't necessarily believe you or the Israelis that they didn't have anything to do with it. Do you have a message to the people in the streets right now?
Well, I can understand why in this circumstance they wouldn't believe. I can understand that. But I would not, you notice I don't say things like that unless I have faith in the source from which I've gotten them. Our Defense Department says it's highly unlikely that it was Israelis would have a different footprint, and they've intercepted some anyway. So that's why, if you notice, I didn't say it first. I wanted to make sure that I knew. And look, and I'm not suggesting that Hamas deliberately did it either. That's that old thing. Got to know how to shoot straight. And it's not the first time Hamas has launched something that didn't function very well. So I don't know all the detail, but I do know the people at the Defense Department who I respect, and the intelligence community that I respect. It being highly improbable that Israel did that.
Mr. President, are the Israelis operating within the rules of war that you talked about last week being so important?
Good talking to you all.
Thank you, sir.
Everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I mean, exactly what we're talking about. Peter Baker from the New York Times there, obviously not watching the top of the 4 p.m. program here in the States, asking this question about the skepticism that the people on the street protesting have about the intelligence produced by U.S. and Israeli intelligence agencies. It's something that that good journalists are grappling with, but that people took at face value and now are riding outside of U.S. and Israeli embassies.
Yeah, well, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its boots on. And so what we're seeing here in real time is that it took a moment for the U.S. to analyze the facts. But as the President of the United States just said, he has full confidence in his Defense Department, in his intelligence community, and they have briefed him that, in fact, it was highly unlikely that this came from Israel and that, as he said, Hamas is ultimately responsible. Now, he's not saying that Hamas directly targeted a hospital, although I wouldn't put it past them given what their record is and their use of human shields. But even assuming that it was an errant missile fired at Israel that went off course or that failed, I think the right thing for journalists to do is basically say this was an Islamic Jihad missile based on all the evidence. Based on all the evidence we have now, Islamic Jihad killed hundreds of Palestinians, if that's in fact, what the facts on the ground bear out. And that's what the United States is saying. And I think it's incredibly impactful that the president is showing moral courage. He is showing real moral courage. He's bucking a major narrative line that has taken hold in the Arab world. And he's saying that's not true. Now, I understand why you're upset if you were to believe that, but that was an erroneous belief. And it's now time for cooler heads to prevail. And let's get back to the issue at hand, which is how do we collectively deter Iran, come together to support the Palestinian people in Gaza with humanitarian assistance, and fundamentally stand behind Israel as they work to destroy Hamas.